Welcome to Podcast, the Business of Dentistry podcast, brought to you by Practice Plan. Podcast delivers the best business advice, real-life stories, and practical hints and tips to make your practice a more profitable and sustainable business. And now, here's your host.
Hello and welcome to our latest podcast. My name is Les Jones. I'm the Creative Director at Practice Plan, and I'm going to be your host for this podcast. And I'm very pleased to say that today I'm joined by Hayley Irons of Hayley Irons Marketing. Hi, Hayley.
Good morning, Les.
How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good, thanks. Yes, yeah. All the better for seeing and hearing from you.
Well, we're here to talk about marketing, and you are the perfect person to kind of talk us through some of these elements of marketing, because you have very much seen both sides of the fence, haven't you? You started your career actually in dentistry and practice. That's
right, yeah. Many moons ago, I started off my career in marketing and advertising, working for advertising agencies. Worked on lots of different style accounts, from big accounts like BMW, Redrow Homes, to small individual accounts. I then met my husband, who had two daughters, so I had an instant family, and my job was taking me here, there and everywhere. So I decided to have a little look around and have something that kept me at home. And I ended up getting a part-time reception job at a cosmetic dental practice near where I live. So that was my first step into dentistry. I then worked my way up to practice manager. And then after probably about 10 years of that, I decided, let's just look around what else there is. And to be honest, I wasn't planning on setting up my own company. It was just that different practices were saying, we don't have a practice manager's role, but we see you've got some marketing experience. Can you help us in any small way? And it just evolved, and HI Marketing was born. So I was very fortunate with that. And I actually love it, because I didn't want to leave dentistry. I fell in love with dentistry, but I also really enjoy the marketing side. So yeah, I've seen both sides of the coin and know how they work.
Well, we're here for this podcast to just basically kind of dip a toe in the water, if you like, for any practices that are thinking of doing some marketing with their practice, and just to give them a few hints and tips. But let's just start right at the beginning and just define what marketing is. What for you actually is marketing? Some people think about it. Is it advertising? Is it just selling? What defines marketing?
To me, the two words that define marketing are selling and promotion. Yes, you are selling your services or a product, but to me, it's more about promotion and building brand loyalty. I think we can all agree that in today's world, I personally feel a lot of business sectors have lost the customer service aspect. And I think that's so important with building a brand and the loyalty. And I think that it's not just about saying, oh, we do teeth, we do whitening, we do dental implants, etc. What you need to be is promoting what's different about you, why you're so good, what is it you can offer. Is it just you're supporting patients with their oral health throughout their lives? Is it that you can give them the smile of their dreams? So you're selling, but it's more about the promotion of the team and the practice for me, rather than the actual products and services. I think dentistry's changed an awful lot over probably the last 20 years I've been in it. That yes, it was about shouting out about, oh, we do the latest treatment, because everybody knew dentistry is NHS. You went, you got your teeth sorted, that was it. And then there was this big change in, I suppose, social media brought that on how we look and how we appear and what we want to look like. So then practices had to start shouting about, oh, we could do teeth whitening, we can straighten your teeth. But now I think everybody's quite aware of what dental practices offer. So to me now, it's about promoting your brand to build up the loyalty, which will then sell, rather than sell and then build up a brand.
Yeah. Obviously, you go in and see a lot of dental practices and talk to them about their marketing. What would you say are the most common reasons why you're called in? What are the problems that practices are trying to solve?
I would say they most of them now know that they have to do some form of marketing. Again, when you were NHS, patients just came to you, you didn't have to do anything. And back then, all the adverts had to be the same, the NHS defined them, etc. So it was all done for you. Now, it's like, you know, the private practices, right, okay, you've got to do your own marketing. And they're like, okay, what's that? You may do now, but years ago, you didn't learn about marketing, especially in dental school. And I think now people don't go ahead with marketing straight away because they're a bit unsure of how to go about it, what to do. So I think most people, when they contact me, are saying, how do we do it? Have we got the time to do it? And have we got the knowledge to do it? And I think they're the three key areas of the struggles that practices have. And I think time is the main one.
Yeah. And how important is it for practices to develop a marketing strategy as opposed to doing kind of ad hoc little bits of stuff here and there? How important is it to have a kind of a longer term view of where you're trying to get to?
I think that depends really on who you speak to. So anybody in my game will probably have a different answer to this question. So I'll answer it in my way, obviously. For me, yes, you need a strategy, but a lot of people go, okay, so we need a 6-month, 12-month strategy of where we're going to be, don't we? And, you know, I see the benefits of that. But what I find is, as with most industries, things change quite quickly. Your targets and your aims may change, because you may discover once you go down the marketing route that what you thought was going to be your aim and your target actually changes, because the market changes, the perceiving of dentistry changes, whatever it may be. So I'm somebody that would prefer shorter strategies, as in maybe 2 to 3 months, and review it each time. So it is important to have that plan of in what we're going to cover, what do you want to aim for, what we're trying to do, whether it's build up your audience on social media, is it to sell more of a particular treatment, is it to fill up the hygiene book, whatever it may be. But for me, shorter plans are better, because, as I say, things happen all the time and your goals change quite quickly, I find, in the industry these days. So a shorter plan of what you're going to cover and what your aim is better for me, I believe, than a long-term plan.
That's very interesting. And what about budgets then, Hayley? Because, you know, I mean, I speak to dental practices sometimes about their marketing, and some of them have a very perhaps odd opinion of marketing. They see it very much as a cost, not as an investment that should give them a return. You know, how do you talk to practices about what they should allocate in terms of budgets?
Okay. Again, everyone will have a different opinion on this, but it's interesting you saying that they see it as a cost rather than investment, because I found this out during COVID. When COVID hit, I lost 3/4 of my business, understandably, but because most practices saw it as a cost that got to cut out because they had everything else going on. Few practices kept it going because they saw it as an investment, and was then, when things got back to, I say, normal, when they got back to patients being allowed to go back in on a better basis, they were in the right position to then have the patients coming through the door, especially ones that had suffered with their dental health throughout COVID. So yes, I agree with you that I often say it is an investment. Don't see it as just another outlay, another cost, another, I've ticked a box, that's it. With regards to budgets, again, this does vary on practice. And if you're talking to, most of the industry will have figures for something. And I think at the moment, the rule of thumb, just checking my notes here, is 2 to 5% of your gross income is what they suggest. I never use that rule of thumb. I always say to the practice, what do you feel comfortable with spending? What would you like to put towards it? Which I know sort of throws the curveball back at them.
Yeah.
But if I said to them, right, you've got to spend £3,000 a month on marketing, they might go, okay, not know what they're getting for it. Is it really worth it? then they start it and it's not meeting their expectations, because we all have a figure we're comfortable with in our minds, even though we may not say it. It's even like in women, when we go out and buy a dress, we'll have a figure in our head that we want to spend, and if we're convinced to spend over, we're not so sure on it. So to me, you've got to be comfortable with what you allocate. So when practices come to me and say, can I know what you charge for, say, social media marketing, I can give them an idea of what they can get for a certain budget, and then I put it back in their court and say, what does this fit like to you? What was your instant thoughts? Was it too much? Oh, it's not as much as I thought. Is it about the same? Because that will give both parties an idea of what they feel about marketing. Because as I say, a lot of practices want to do it and know it's essential. Others are like, yeah, I know we've got to do something. So they might have a lower budget. So again, my opinion is that it's got to be whatever budget they feel comfortable with. And it might be that they start off, I have clients that start off with a lower budget, so we do a little less for them. But once they see what they can get from it, they then go, okay, well, what if we spend this, what else can we get? So again, sometimes I work with the client and the practice. What are they expecting? What would they like to spend? Let's see what we can do with that. And then hopefully, if it will work well, then it will continue to grow between us, and we can get them spending the right amount for the return they're after.
Yeah, I suppose that really leads neatly onto my next question, and that's about kind of measuring and monitoring, if you like. Because if you talk to people about a spend without a kind of return, then it feels, that's perhaps where there's a bit of tension. However, you mentioned the figure of, say, £3,000. If that £3,000 a month brings in £15,000 of business, then it almost becomes a no-brainer, doesn't it? So are there things that you can do when you are doing the marketing that you can put in place that then kind of monitors the return on that investment?
Yeah, one of the main keys I always say to my clients is that they need to have their reception prepped for taking answering calls to new patients or emails. They need to know where they're coming from. I'm quite amazed at how many practices still don't ask new patients, how did you find us? How did you hear about us? And yes, it might be a referral. A lot of people will say website, even though it may have been Google or it may have been social media, because Google and social media, most times they'll then jump onto the website, and it's at the website point they make the decision to use the practice. So sometimes you could go more in depth every time, so if somebody said, oh yes, saw it on the website, you could then go, well, how did you find the website? But you need to be careful not to ask too many questions and bore patients. So it's really important that the team know how important it is to track where patients are coming from, and explain to them that we're spending a chunk of money here, so we need to know where every patient's coming from, what's working, what's not working. So I think the reception team is the key to anything like that, to measurements. Yes, we can measure things if we're doing offers, get them to quote a code, etc. That's a good way, but again, it's the reception team that need to be getting that information and recording it. And then with my clients, we have a review every mainly 2 months, because 1 month's practices struggle to get time slotted in. And we'll go through the figures and say, okay, we've spent this on this form of marketing, we did that, what have we got in return from it, and go from there. It all depends on the marketing platform that we've used, whether it's social media, or have we done a leaflet drop, or have we done an advertisement in a local magazine. So it does vary a little bit on what you're going to get. I am asked quite often, okay, if I am going to spend £3,000 a month, how much am I going to get in return? And it is really difficult to say, oh, well, you're going to get £15,000 back each time. It's, if we could say something like that, it'd be great. But it again, sometimes it's trial and error with practices at the beginning. Other times, if you've worked with them for a long time, you can more or less gauge what you're going to get. They say the average would be So if you're spending £1, you should get £5 in return. That's the average. Excellent would be 10 to 1, and poor would be 2 to 1. But again, that is something that somebody's come up with across the board. Doesn't matter what platform you've used, it's just a guide. But if I tell my practices that, it gives them some idea that, okay, that's what we hope to get back. But as I say, it just depends on what our goal is as well.
Yeah.
Are we trying to get more dental implant patients in? Well, the return on that could be a lot bigger because it costs a lot more than just getting more people in for the dental hygienist. So again, it's a very difficult topic to talk about and quantify. But a lot of dentists do want if I'm spending £3,000, how much am I going to get back? Which is understandable. We all want to know. It's their money. It's their hard-earned money that they're putting into it. So, I try and be as honest as I can and not overpromise anything, because that's not going to work for anybody. But it's a very difficult subject to have, especially with dentists, to find after working in different industries. I think because it's their baby, their practice, and also their hard-earned money, they do treat it as their money, quite rightly. So it's like, well, I'm spending this, so you need to guarantee me something in return.
Yeah. Well, as you and I both know, that marketing is not an exact science, and there are no guarantees, and what will work for one practice might not necessarily work for another practice. But I suppose the kind of the rule here would be, put your toe in the water, see what happens, learn quickly. You already mentioned that if something's not working, then kind of stop it quite quickly and find the things that do work for you as a practice. And I suppose then the more that you kind of hone those messages into the right places, and the practices start to see those returns, the more confident they'll be to then kind of reinvest further down the line.
Exactly.
So a quick question in terms of where people should look for their marketing. You mentioned right at the beginning, Hayley, that your position as practice manager within a dental practice, you were doing marketing there, which kind of throws up the question as to whether it's possible to do the marketing for a practice internally, or should the marketing be outsourced, say, to a kind of an agency like yourselves?
Yeah, again, it varies from practice to practice. So if you've got a one practice with a team of, say, 6 people, only 2 surgeries, something like that, it's about giving quality time to it. So there's key aspects. There's quality time being able to give into it. So have people internally got the time to devote to it? Have they got the knowledge? And have they got the support? It's not just one person's. My clients come to me and say, okay, can you do our marketing? And I said, yeah, no problem. But especially with social media marketing, and I go, that your team is going to have to be involved. It's not just a case of me going away, doing it in the background and everything running behind it. They need to play a part. So whether they want to outsource it all depends on, as I say, whether they've got the right team member to do it, the time to do it, and also, when I say knowledge, it's about knowing what GDC like you or not like you to say on social media, CQC, those sort of things, because that can be obviously very tricky to navigate through sometimes. So not many practices have that sort of person.
Yeah,
I think it was just because I had my marketing experience previously that gave me a little bit of an edge, really, in that respect. And the practice I joined we'd started up from scratch. So in a way, I had the time to be able to devote to it. But as with everything, sometimes you do need to delegate, and you do need to get that extra support in. Even when I was practice manager, towards the end of my job there, we did outsource it because it was getting too big with the practice growing, and definitely when CQC came into practice, that took up more time, and that was quite a big chunk, quite important. So again, it's really does depend on the practice. There's no right or wrong answer.
Do you ever
questions you're asking me, so I'm sorry.
Okay, fine. Do you ever find there's a situation where you might actually support a practice in the first instance, and then the more the practice gets to understand how the marketing is working, that perhaps they can start to take more of a responsibility themselves?
Yeah, I actually like to work with a practice in that way. So I've got a few practices where I've started off doing their social media. Then I go in and do a little bit of team training, a few lunch and learns to get them on board, to get them, again, this is more with social media, which is the main form of marketing now, I think, for dental practices. So getting them to know what pictures to send me, what little videos to send me, etc. And then we get to a point where there's a particular member of staff that shows more interest or shows more talent or whatever it might be. And then we then sort of give them the tools. So what we do is I will hand over the social media marketing back to them, but I then continue as a consultant, and I have one-to-one sessions with that team member for several months. And then when they get to a point that they feel comfortable that actually, they're doing a really good job, they know what they're doing, then sometimes it's a case of me stepping back and going, great, my job's done, well done, and off you go. So that's actually my ideal way of working, because it's nice to get them up and running, seeing someone develop an interest in it and growing through it. So I actually love that side of things, and I'm learning more about how team members want to get involved and have ideas, which is great, but just sometimes they don't have the know-how of how do we do it, how can I do it. And going into practices, especially at the moment where I'm giving some training sessions, it's great to then see when I'm scrolling through my social media that they've took on my advice, and I see that different things going on. So it's great to see that. So that is my ideal client, rather than me just go, okay, I can do it. I mean, there are a lot of practices that I do just do their social media and have done for quite a few years, because that's who they are, that's what they want, that's what they feel comfortable with. So we have to be flexible as marketing people to work with what the practices want. Yes, we can advise on what's best, but we have to remember that we are representing them. We have to promote their personality, their morals, their ethos. So who's best to do it?
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
it someone in the practice, or do they prefer someone like myself, where they just feel comfortable with, it's done, I don't have to worry about, is the wrong word being used in the social media text, is there an image with somebody's patient name in the background, that sort of thing. So again, depends on the practice and how they feel about things.
Yeah. Hayley, you've given us a great introduction there to marketing. Lots of things, I'm sure, for people who are listening to think about. If they want to kind of take this further and perhaps want some more information, where do they need to go?
Well, if they want to contact me direct, they are more than welcome. I am on Facebook and Instagram as HI Marketing. I also have my website, hayleyironsmarketing.co.uk. And I'm sure if they contact yourselves, they would be able to find me as well.
Absolutely. Hayley, I feel as though we've kind of just scratched the surface of marketing, so perhaps we should kind of get a date in the diary to do number 2 of this kind of series of marketing chats. But for now, Hayley, that's been fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Les. Thank you.